She rejected my touch for the last time. It wasn't just a hand held lightly or a hug brushed off. It was the cold refusal that left no room for negotiation. I had been married for 10 years, and the intimacy that had once been the foundation of our bond had slowly eroded, replaced by distance, excuses, and eventually, indifference. That night, I reached for her hand on the couch. Her eyes met mine, sharp and unyielding. "Don't," she said flatly. "I don't want this tonight, or any night." I paused. The weight of her words hit harder than any slap could have. I wanted to argue, to plead, to remind her of the life we'd built, of the years we had shared. But something inside me shifted. I realized that chasing someone who had already turned away would only diminish me. My presence, at that moment, was no longer valued, so I left. Not in a fit of rage, not in dramatic protest, but quietly. I packed a small bag, took a breath, and stepped out into the night. My phone stayed on, my door closed behind me, and I let the silence of absence speak the words she refused to hear. The next morning, the first text arrived. "Where are you? Come back. We need to talk." I didn't reply. I didn't even glance at it. For the first time in years, I let her live with her choice, to push me away, to reject my presence, to deny what had once been a shared life. Days passed. Calls, messages. Even a friend of hers tried to reach me with casual updates. "She's worried. She's asking about you." I stayed away. My apartment became my refuge, my space to think, to process, and to watch her unravel, not in revenge, but as a natural consequence of her choices. I noticed the small shifts first. She left clothes in disarray, forgot meals, and stopped texting her friends. She had always thrived on control, on validation, on the sense that someone else's life could be directed by her whims. Without me within reach, without my quiet compliance, her carefully curated world began to fracture. A week later, I received a photo from one of her friends. She looked anxious, pale, restless. A small caption read, "She's asking about you constantly. She seems lost." I didn't gloat. I didn't taunt. I simply realized that absence can be a more powerful teacher than presence. I had removed myself, and in doing so, I allowed reality to set in. She had lost the comfort, the security, the unwavering presence she had taken for granted. By the second week, the calls turned desperate. I ignored them all. Her texts became longer, more detailed, begging for explanations, for attention, for a chance to bring me back into the fold. I did not respond. I had learned that being available to someone who had rejected you only reinforces their disregard. One evening, a mutual friend called me directly. She's crying. She's asking where you are, why you left, what she did wrong. You need to talk to her." I leaned back in my chair, thinking about the 10 years of rejection, the nights of cold shoulders, the mornings where I had felt invisible. I thought about every time she had dismissed me, every time my touch had been refused, every time my presence had been minimized. And I understood. No words would fix this. The lesson she needed wasn't in conversation. It was in consequence. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I noticed her life becoming unrecognizable. Friends she had relied on for social validation started distancing themselves, first subtly, then more openly. She had always projected her energy outward, demanding attention, commanding presence. Without me, her mirror, her reflection of worth, she realized the emptiness of her influence. Then came the final moment. She showed up at my apartment, standing on the doorstep, trembling. Eyes wide, voice strained. "Please, I can't do this without you. I need you. I didn't mean it. I was wrong." I didn't open the door. I didn't respond verbally. I simply stepped back, letting the door remain closed. She stayed outside for a long moment, the weight of her desperation hanging in the cold night air. Eventually, she left. Not with anger, not with a fight, but with the quiet realization that some losses cannot be reversed by pleas alone. Weeks later, I moved forward with my life. I focused on work, on friendships, on rebuilding the parts of myself that had been neglected in the pursuit of a marriage where my presence had been undervalued. She, meanwhile, remained haunted by the absence she had created. I learned something profound in those weeks of silence. Presence is precious, but absence can be transformative. By removing myself from a space where I was rejected, I allowed both of us to see the truth. She had lost more than she realized, and I had gained the clarity, peace, and dignity that comes from refusing to be diminished. Eventually, I didn't even check for messages anymore. Her loss became a quiet echo in my life, a reminder of the power of boundaries, self-respect, and the subtle, devastating force of removing yourself from a situation where you are no longer valued. She had said, "Don't touch me tonight." I had whispered back, without saying a word, without confrontation. I removed myself entirely. And in that removal, she lost the control, the comfort, and the person she had taken for granted. Sometimes the loudest consequences aren't in shouting or revenge. They are in the calm, measured act of walking away. They are in letting absence become the mirror where someone finally sees the truth of their own actions. She rejected my touch. I removed my presence. And that simple act, silent, decisive, unyielding, was when she finally lost the grip she had on my life, and I finally reclaimed my own.